So it looks like we're actually seeing the impact of United Nations human rights arm investigating and doing inquiries bear fruit right now. Yep, that's true. You know what I'm talking about? Listen up. One of the things I'm doing, JJ Legal, on social media is helping you understand the various different lawsuits filed against the Trump administration. And one of the ones that I've been following involves 238 men that was sent and deported to the torture camp or torture prison called CECOT in El Salvador on March 15th. And there's been efforts to bring people back. Of the 238, 4 have been ordered to be returned. 2 are actually back. Kilma Abrego Garcia. There's another one who goes by the initials O.G.G. He is a Guatemalan origin who was sent to Mexico, and he's back after the Trump administration deported him. Third person is Christian, which is a young person, Daniel Lozado, who was 19-year old. He was not supposed to be deported because he was subject to a court order that said certain people who came to the United States as minors, there's a class action, can't be reported or deported, and they deported him anyway. There's a judge named Stephanie Gallagher who had been overseeing the case of this person's return, and on June 5th, she ordered that they facilitate a return, similar to what the Trump administration's Department of Justice attorneys had done to Judge Jim Boasberg in the District Court of DC when he had been asking for insights into how they were deporting people, and the Trump administration were obfuscating him and Han, lying, delaying, making up various different excuses to avoid the truth, seriously in contempt. They did the same thing to Judge Paula Xinis in the District Court inside of Maryland, who had similarly been asking the Trump administration to find out and facilitate the return of Kilma Abrego Garcia, pursuant to the United States Supreme Court on a 9-0 basis, telling the Trump administration to facilitate Kilma Abrego Garcia's return. And then finally, Christiane Stephanie Gallagher, who's the district court judge, was overseeing this case, had also on June 5th told the Trump administration if they need to facilitate the return of that young man because he was part of a class action lawsuit that said minors that entered the United States a certain age, it was, at a certain time before 2019, were not to be deported from the United States, and they deported him anyway. And since June 5th, the Trump administration had been hemming and hawing, making up excuses, saying that diplomatic immunities and various different reasons. She goes through in her recent letter to them saying the different reasons they've given her. They've said stuff like that they need assistance from the United States Department of State. They entered into negotiations to facilitate his return. They said that they assumed, that it had to do with diplomatic reasons. They're giving all these lies. Now, how do we know the lies have come through? 4 men whose family members have been looking for them launched complaints investigation with the United Nations. The United Nations reached out to the folks in El Salvador government and asked the El Salvador government about these 4 men and others and said, what's going on? We are told by the United States government that you guys have constructive control, and the reason why these men are still in your country is because of you. To which the El Salvadorian government was like, what? Who told you that?
The requests for information indicate that the United States government and El Salvador both have refused to publish the official list of the deported persons. It also indicates that after the deported people were sent to El Salvador, their names disappeared from the United States ICE online detention locator, starting on the date of March 15th when they were deported.
Their official response to the United Nations was the actions of the state of El Salvador have been limited to the implementation of a bilateral cooperation mechanism with another state meaning country, through which it facilitated the use of Salvadoran prison infrastructure for the custody of persons detained within the scope of the justice system and law enforcement of that other state, United States. In this context, the jurisdiction and legal responsibility of these persons lie exclusively with the competent foreign authorities, right? And by virtue of international agreements signed in accordance with the principles of sovereignty international, essentially, what they're saying is that it has nothing to do with us. We were paid by the United States government to house these people. They sent these people here. We don't care if they're here or not. We do not give a rat's ass. If you want them back, you can get them back. It's essentially obliterates every single thing the Trump administration, Department of Justice attorneys have argued to Judge Boasberg, to Judge Paula Xinis, and to Judge Stephanie Gallagher, the three judges that told them to return people back. You know the way they, it's in another video, watch my account, how they got Kilmar back with some fake thing about him being ordered by some sort of investigation. Totally made up lie, in my opinion. And they brought back the Guatemalan resident citizen from Mexico. They brought him back. But as to these last two, they're just making excuses. They're like, and these are the ones that specifically were in CECOT. So the CECOT one, they're having challenges with. Since this, so the judge said, which one is it? Because according to things that you guys have told me in my court record, you say that you don't have custodial requests and it's not up to you and it's up to some negotiations that you're working with. So what has happened lately? Today, July 11th, the Trump administration said, in order, I'll tell you specifically what they said. Hold on. They finally said that there's a declaration of Melissa Harper, who is the Homeland Security Enforcement and Removal Operations Acting Deputy Executive Associate Director, who's only had that job since May 29th. She says that they've asked, they said, I'm aware of the court's order, which orders the defendants to facilitate the return of an alien with the pseudonym Christian. And then she says that she tried to make the diplomatic immunity sort of request, but she says essentially that they have requested for his physical location. And as of today, July 10th, the embassy has not received response. They also said that they put it in the hands of the embassy, United States Embassy that's in El Salvador. And the embassy in El Salvador asked, and they have yet to receive a response. I think this sets it up for Judge Gallagher to issue the Trump administration in contempt, because she's essentially calling their bluff. She says, in your declarations that you've submitted when I've asked you for an update on the process of bringing Christian back, you repeatedly say you're working through diplomatic negotiations, and you're working in diplomatic negotiations. And here you have the people who you be engaging in diplomatic negotiations saying there is no diplomatic negotiations. We have no interest whatsoever in holding these people here. And the only thing that's causing us to have them here is the United States government. So essentially their lie is broken. I think it's ripe for her to go ahead and issue them criminal contempt and do whatever she needs to do to force their hand to do what they can do, as they did with Kilmar or Garcia, the lying lot they are. Thanks to the UN and thanks to more eyes on this, putting more pressure and essentially saying, hey, look at here. We don't know if this is the end of it. Of course, they can still do the same nonsense they've been doing, but it's harder because now we have another party asking them. It's not just the judges, it's not just the family members who they don't care. It's not just Democratic members of Congress and who are representatives of the people where these places, where these men lived in before. It's now the United Nations. It's now the world saying, what are you doing with these people? As I've always said, in this case and others, there's another side to this. There's Nuremberg type trials. These are the trials that were held after the fall of Nazi Germany, where essentially it was almost like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is something that South Africa held after apartheid fell, essentially giving people an opportunity to come forward and tell their truth, and essentially holding people accountable and getting an accurate assessment of every single thing that happened. And some folks brokered some deals, but for the most part, is making people accountable for what they've done. And so this is the start of that. Donald Trump is 160 days into his administration. He's already broken so many laws and violated so many people's human rights and civil rights and constitutional rights, to the extent that it's gotten widespread attention all over the world are looking at this. The closest thing I can think of like this, well, for me personally, is the turning of the civil rights era, where the United States did a lot of horrible things, sicked dogs and threw water hose on Black Americans protesting for the civil rights in the 1960s. And they didn't really do much for it. It was just those folks protesting. There wasn't necessarily appetite to do anything about the protesters. But what changed it was television, because now on television, broadcast to the world was this nation that claims to be the land of the free, that claims to have moral authority over other developing nations, or other third world nations or other non-democratic nations. And here you are claiming this moral authority and you're treating citizens, born citizens of your nation, this way. It's not a good look. And so this is a similar sort of thing, like that all eyes are on Donald Trump and these ICE agents, and they do not give a rat's ass how bad they look. That just tells you to which they are deep, knee deep into Donald Trump's ass and do not care. But we do, and we're making rights. And so that's a good news. My name is JJ Legal. On this account, I'm doing the thing. I'm helping you guys get a sense of calm, understand what's going on, and let you know these wins. So if you're interested in that, follow along for more. Share this video, share this account with other people. You can go to jjlegal.com to get my Know Your Rights card for $1. I have Case Tracker for $7.99, ways you can support me. I also sell legal templates, and I have private communities where I'm going to just do office hours soon and open it up. So those are different ways you can support me. Otherwise, watch a playlist here or here, wherever you're watching this. So keep the learning going. Each one teach one.